Hi guys, and welcome back. I'm going to be speaking on a subject that I mean, yeah, I don't know who's allowing this on both Mexico and on the U.S. side in L.A. Who's actually behind it, authorizing it, and even in San Diego because they're collecting money in San Diego. Who's actually allowing this to flow. And when I hear Shadow speak about border towns, and I kind of like I grew up around a border town all my life. I've been around all my life, so I kind of want to I guess Adam, I overlook a lot of actual dangers, and being part of that actual community, to read about this is disturbing and scary. And I've had family members go through this, and actual a fake one put on me with my family, but it wasn't severe to me. It wasn't, but to my family it was, and and I even had maybe about over 50 years ago. Uh, some family had to pay $1 million to get an uncle out, and that was I really did a video on that one, but six Mexican nationals charged in participating in cross-border kidnapping for ransom conspiracy responsible for six murders. So apparently, six members of a Tijuana out of Tijuana, Mexico-based hostage-taking organization that allegedly kidnapped nine victims and murdered six of them, including three U.S. citizens. Some of them after their family paid the ransom for their release. Cut all ties, right? The five-count indictment charges all six defendants with one count of conspiracy to commit hostage taking resulting in death, one count of conspiracy to commit extortion, and one count of extortion. The actual this Yera 37, he's apparently the ringleader, and Gilberto, aka Omar 27, Aileen 24, Joel 22, Victoria 22, and Oscar 30. Foguera and actual Omar and Victoria each face an additional count of hostage taking resulting in death and extortion. All six defendants are in custody facing charges in Mexico filed by authorities. So they're being charged down in Mexico. According to the indictment, January 2020 through April 2020, Yera led the hostage-taking organization that extorted money from victims by taking hostage and holding for ransom in the U.S. Holding ransom of U.S. nationals and Mexican nationals with relatives in the U.S. That's the key, And I've always said, what, when you go down to border towns, don't show off. You're not gonna impress anybody. The more low key, the better. And they do pick up on your routines. They do pick up on your habits. They do pick up on your actual visiting. They do pick up that you're from the U.S. So they do their homework. They study people. Over 40 years ago, maybe 50, my aunt, she frequently went down to visit my grandma in Mexico, and they got a pattern, and they would load up actual packages in her actual engine. It was before you had to actually open the trunk from, I mean the hood from the inside. So um, if you wanted to protect your battery, you actually had to put a chain to keep your actual hood closed. For somebody to steal your battery. So they would actually stuff packages. When she would get home, they would unload the packages. One day she caught them actually unloading the actual packages, and they got the packages and they left the trunk open and they took off. So then that's when she found out that she was being used as a blind mule. But they do their homework. And these actual uh, criminals, they did not release you if you didn't have the money. If you have the money, they will straight out kill you. The hostage-taking group would generally lure their victims into a meeting under false pretense and took them hostage. Honey trap. Honey trap, or some kind of you know, they know how to get you. The group allegedly held the victims at gunpoint, tied them up, and often brutally beat them. Members of the group called the family members in the U.S. and demanded money and vehicles as ransom in return for the release of their loved ones, according to the indictment. So if you didn't have the money, they gave you the option of giving up a title to one of your vehicles. Wow. Apparently, so in return for their loved ones, right? So according to the actual indictment, if the victim did not have the money to pay the ransom, they were murdered, as happened with the indictment that calls victim A, B, and I. In other instances outlined in the indictment in which ransoms were paid, they the conspirators allegedly killed the victims to protect the conspiracy. No ties, right? Other members of the organization traveled from Mexico into the U.S. to locate select to locations selected by Yera and others to collect the ransom payments made by the victims' family members. For example, in March 2020, a conspirator traveled to collect ransom payments on Yera's behalf at a McDonald's in San Isidro. That's right across the street from the border, right steps from the actual border. And after the murder of the victim, the indictment alleges that Yera sent uh, an individual, uh, a message, a text message to another gang member. This was good job done, you know. And on April 2020, Yera and the conspirators allegedly orchestrated the hostage taking of a victim identified in court documents as Victim E, a U.S. citizen who resided in Norwalk, who was at the time visiting family members in Tijuana. See, they study you, they pick up a pattern. Victim E was forced to call his mother, say he was in trouble, and instructed her to call an individual to pay $25,000 for his release. The victim's mother struggled to obtain the ransom money to agree to pay the hostages. She agreed to pay them $1,000 and victim E's title to his vehicle in exchange for his release. And she met up with the actual ransom collector in Norwalk in April 13, 2020. The same day, victim E was murdered. His body was recovered in Mexico the next day. Wow. On April 22nd, 2020, a Pasadena woman called law enforcement to report a family member identified as victim H had been kidnapped in Mexico with a ransom demand of $20,000. One of the kidnappers called from a Mexican phone, informed the victim's family that a woman would pick up the actual ransom money at a Food for Less parking lot in Linwood, California. That same day, law enforcement in Mexico rescued the victim that was being held in a hotel. Now, okay, so these are actual payable actual ransoms to hardworking middle class or even low income families. Okay, very very reasonable, very very low. You can come up with some money fast if that's actual what's going on with your actual family member, but it's not enough to pay a cartel in Mexico. It's not enough to pay a cartel in Mexico. That money is not enough for the fact that they're gonna be actually expecting a bigger chunk than 20,000 per person. The cartel's gonna be in this business. They're gonna be doing $100,000 at the minimum. That way, everybody gets a fair share or a good amount of actual cash for the risk. But when you're not doing that, you're pretty much screwed. And I mean, it's sad all the way around. And you know, it sucks. It just sucks all the way around for everybody. All right, guys. Hope you guys like and subscribe.